All right, welcome everyone. I'm so excited to have Marguerita or Rita Cheng. She is an absolute delight. She works with women in finance. She is a financial planner, and she is here today to talk about the things that we often forget about as women, but also when it comes to family. So I will just share this. About 1 in 4 caregivers are in what we call the actual sandwich generation, meaning they're trying to take care of their children as well as their aging loved ones. And so what can happen is that financially speaking, you might be in quite a show, if you will, of trying to figure out how to balance your day-to-day budget, make sure you have enough money for retirement, excuse me, and also addressing your family or your adult parents, their needs. And what has been a trend is that more women in particular are paying out of pocket, and men are doing this too, are paying out of pocket up to $7,000 or more a year trying to take care of their aging loved ones. And that's not all tax deductible because it's not a child, by the way. It's not a tax credit. You don't get that. So I am very excited to have Margarita or Rita just to start talking and sharing a little bit about like how did you become a financial planner? Give us your story because I know you're a mom, and I would love to hear that once we kind of begin right now.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's really an honor and a pleasure and an honor to be here. My story, I really think I was always destined to be a financial planner.
Whoa.
I'm the eldest of three girls, just a little bit of a backstory because it is all relevant, and I'll tie it back to caregiving. So, my dad was born in China and came to the US by way of Taiwan. My dad came to America in the 60s. I know that's a long time ago, but even for the 60s, it's still not a lot of money. My dad came with $17. Taiwan is very tropical. It's like Hawaii, and he landed in Wisconsin because he was sponsored by the Jesuits. My dad had never seen snow in his life. So, my dad, growing up, he told me this. He said, and I thought all kids had to experience this, but he's like, money doesn't buy happiness, but money does bring more opportunities for you, your family, your community. And whatever you do, don't squander those opportunities. But my dad felt that it was important for everybody to learn about money. And whether, no matter your age, your gender, your background, he really did a good job of making it age appropriate and relevant. So, this is, I think, what kind of put my mind into motion. I'm the first on my mom's side of the family to graduate from uh, a 4 year university. My dad showed me, that he purchased stock through the employee stock purchase program. That's pleasant. I learned how to track stocks, how to read value line. But my dad also took the opportunity to explain to me about life insurance. When I was 10 years old, my aunt, that is my mom's older brother's wife, was a stay at home mom, transitioning back to the workforce. She actually was a cook for the rectory and helped because she was very good at cooking and events and so forth. So she was returning to the workforce, but for a long time, she was a stay at home mom. She died very unexpectedly. And my uncle asked my dad's English name is Paul, Paul, can you loan me money for the funeral? And my dad said no. Now, those of you who are tuning in, I don't want you to think Marguerita's dad was obnoxious. My dad said, I'm not going to loan you the money. I will pay for the funeral because you should not experience emotional loss and financial loss. I was 10 years old. And my dad, like, I didn't know the difference between term insurance or whole life insurance. I just knew what insurance contracts were. And my dad said, you're the eldest. And if anything happens to daddy, like, you got to take care of your mom and sisters. People are like, oh my God, that's a horrible thing to do to a little girl.
No.
But we have to also understand my dad actually had to flee his hometown. My dad
Yeah.
was pretty much a refugee. So his way of showing love was through planning. That is exactly why I became a planner. In college, I studied finance, corporate finance, and that was my first job. And I felt a little bit disconnected. I graduated with undergraduate degrees in East Asian language, literature, and finance. And I know I just can't like meditate and drink tea and read poetry, but I also didn't like how transactional corporate finance could be.
Right.
So I decided, um, like, I didn't necessarily know about the separate and distinct discipline of personal financial planning, but I know that many of the concepts are similar. So, like a balance sheet for a company is a net worth statement, and a statement of cash flows is really like a budget or an income statement. I know they're a little bit different in accounting, but basically you're tracking someone's assets and liabilities, and then you're tracking someone's income and expenses. So I said to myself, I really want to take everything that I learned in corporate finance and apply it to individuals and families, because I believe conversations about money can be awkward. However, if we do things right, we can transform families and lives of many generations to come. So that's like, why I became a planner. I know that planning, this is what my dad said. When you plan, it's your way of showing love. Now, if you don't plan, it doesn't mean you don't love your family. That's not what I'm saying, but it's one less thing to worry about. So
Exactly.
that's exactly why I became a planner, because I love helping people.
And I love this story, Rita, because it wasn't horrible that your father told you these things, at such a young age. It's just showing you that he was like, listen, there are things that we cannot plan for. And so if you don't try to at least plan in a direction of where you want to go, you're going to end up in a spot that you do not like and you do not want. And you've got to stay there until you can figure out your way. And that can take a lot more time and money than we all would like to admit. And there's nothing worse than regret, in my opinion, like, oh, I should have done this. I should have gone there. I should have gotten the life insurance, but I said, no, I'll wait. We don't need to spend that kind of money. Blah, 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 blah. Nope, you need to spend the money. You definitely need to spend the money. So I'm so glad that you just shared just that piece right there, because that's massive, massive, massively helpful and so clarifying as to why you realize like, hey, planning is actually a form of love, and then it can actually help your family have those conversations that you absolutely need to have, so you're not stuck going, I don't know, I don't know.
Absolutely. And I always tell my dad, remember, I'm the eldest of three girls. I was that kid who was 17 going on 40. My dad thought it was very important that I know about money, know about tech, and know about cars. Now, we did not get to home improvement, but with home improvement, like, I get overwhelmed. And I actually share with clients that, like, we all have our specialty. Even when I went to Home Depot to buy caulk, there were like 100 questions. Like, okay, do you want it clear? Are you going to paint on it? I don't know. Is it for inside or outside? Is it going to get wet? I don't know. So you know what? I ended up leaving Home Depot, not buying anything because I was so overwhelmed. So I say to clients that my role is to really help you. I don't want to talk over you, talk down to you. I just want to speak to you in a way that resonates with you to help you and your family um, move forward and have a better outcome. That's just what we're trying
Exactly.
to do.
Exactly. And I think that's just so beautiful what you just shared.
Thank
Yeah.
you for that.
Yeah, because there are many financial planners that are very good at the sales, but they're not very good with the follow-up. And that's frustrating when you are like, I have a real money question. So I'll just share some of my personal experience and some of the things I've heard from some of my clients. Some of my clients will say, like, I felt really intimidated with the financial planner. I've had some clients tell me that they intentionally lied to their financial planner because they were so embarrassed and ashamed of what they did do with their money, even though they've got money in, their investments and all that other good stuff, but they don't know what else to say or do. So they just kind of hold it back in. And then it's really hard because you get somebody who's got a great expert financial mind that can help you and get there a lot faster instead of you just trying to, I'll figure it out on my own.
It is important to create safe, supportive spaces for clients. And you have to understand, everyone makes a mistake, but they made the best decision they could with the information they had at that time.
Yeah,
And once you people are like, well, you're giving people a pass. I'm like, okay, fine, if that's what you want to call it. But I think it's important to approach this with understanding, right? And once you view the world from someone's lens and understanding, uh, there's a if you are not creating a safe environment where people can ask questions, um, then that can be a real barrier to building that connection and having more trust. And people will do business with those they like and trust. If they like
Yes.
you, that's great. If they trust you, that's even better.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, I'm just curious, just as sort of as a general thing. So, like many times, what I hear, particularly from parents, is that they're trying to do different things, right? They're trying to like save for retirement, pay for college, manage the household finances, and then there is, oh, I really want to take X amount of dollars and then go do something with it. So, like I've seen people like, how fast can I make money? Right? Like I get that question all the time. And I'm like, well, it depends on what you want to invest in and how you want to put the money, how you want to allocate it, all that good stuff. And I'm not here to talk about speed and money today. I feel like that's just like a bro question. Like we don't need to answer. But what I do hear from families is they're like, okay, we need to get a new car and we need to save up for a down payment. So we know we're going to get a new car in about a year and a half from now or a year down the road. So what they're trying to do is find strategic ways to like, okay, if we take $100 or two, I'll just make it simple for right now. Well, let's just say it's $100 and we want to put it away. I'm like, this is good. A lot of times they just put it in savings and because they don't know if there's any other vehicles that would allow them within a year to maybe 90 days, or not 90 days, excuse me, just within like a year, maybe 18 months, that would actually like grow. And then they could pull from that money and not necessarily get like a tax penalty, all that good stuff. And I just think, yeah, that's a great thing to ask a financial planner about because those are things that they can help you with. Because you and I both know it's like, oh, we drove the car until it exploded. And then we had to go like sign up for financing, and only one of us might have been qualified. Like I've heard it all myself. I'm like, okay. And so, then you get the best rate and then you're off and paying. And when I hear averages, like the average car payment's like $800 now, I'm like, ooh, that's a lot of money. We haven't even talked about insurance.
I know, I was just going to say that that's the average car payment, but that isn't necessarily the cost of ownership because there's also insurance and then there's maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is my advice? So, I love and I understand that interest rates. So, if you're a saver, you're kind of bummed because interest rates aren't as high as they were in 2022, 2023, but they're still more than higher than what we've seen prior to uh, 2022. So I recommend that people open a high yield savings account. Now,
Nice.
some high yield savings accounts, um, you can get them um, with sometimes you to get the most competitive rate, you might need to invest a lump sum. But other high yield savings accounts, you don't even need to um, like open one with $10,000. You can say, hey, I'm putting $100 in here just to open the account. And I don't know, on the 15th of the month, just because that seems like a good day, I'm going to have $100 for my checking account go there. You can do that. The other thing that you can do is I actually did this with a family.
Hmm.
Um, and I said, in this case, every Friday, someone is getting paid. So I said, do you think you could save $50 a check? They're like, yeah, we can do that. That's easy. Let me tell you that $50 adds up. $50 every Friday, because for this family, someone was getting paid every Friday. I'm like, yeah, we can do that. And so what we did is we started with $50 every Friday. What happened is they paid off their car. This is found money. Now their car note was not $800, but it was at
Thank
least
God.
500.
Yeah.
When the car was paid off, I said, you know what? I want you to have a little bit of wiggle room in your budget. Don't think that Rita is coming after you and taking all your money. I'm not. Do you think you could do 100 a check every time someone gets paid? They're like, yeah, we can do that. So it started with 50, then it's 100. That's like $5,200 a year. That is a lot of money. They
Yes.
kept it going. The husband got a bonus and an increase in pay. The wife got a bonus increase in pay. They kept it going. Then there, so it started out 50, then 100, then it was 200.
Yeah.
you can see that is exactly how they built their cash reserve. Um, if no emergencies happen, nothing bad, you just keep it going. There was a point in time because these clients are very, very practical. They used some of that money for a really practical Mother's Day present. Um, the husband knows how much his wife likes to cook, and it's for the family. So, a new kitchen floor. So
Nice.
they took advantage of the financing at home improvement stores where like it's um no interest for like it could be 90 days. They have excellent credit. So for 180 days, they didn't have to make payments. They're keep it going. And then when the bill came, they paid it off and didn't pay a dime of interest. So um, you need cash reserve for any emergencies or opportunities. So sometimes people think, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed. I'm supposed to have like 3 months of expenses. I don't even know how to start.
Hmm.
In this case, someone was getting paid every Friday, so they could do 50 every Friday. But honestly, even if you start with $50 once a month, middle of the month, or $50 every time you get paid, you can still reach your goal. You'll get there. The most important thing is for you to go at the pace that's right for you.
I love that. I love that. So I want to shift a little bit from savings and trying to do like, how do I get, moving here and ask more of a more practical question, which is a good one. This is where I always refer out. And I'm like, here's where you've got to like really sit down with the planner because I will say, like, we can kind of ballpark some stuff, but if you need to know the exact numbers, which you should know if you're going to do this, and that is there are some women who are having to leave the workplace and stay home and take care of their children. Or they're having to leave the workplace for a period of time to take care of a parent or an adult of some kind. And so, what I hear a lot of is I have a 401k or I have some savings and I will use that. And I'm not against it at all. Some people are able to take loans out, against their 401k. So it's not just immediately cash withdrawal, all that good fun stuff. But when that stuff happens, there are consequences, and I feel like a lot of times women in particular are kind of in a position of like, well, I don't know what else to do. Either childcare is too much or work is way too much. I've got to find something different. I've got to do something within 2 weeks to 30 days, sometimes under 3 months. I understand that. But I wanted to, ask you, like, when you have to sit down with somebody who has to make a choice about reducing hours or leaving or something along those hours, and having to, if you will, do the day-to-day care. How do you try to, in terms of like ballpark, like financially, what are you looking at? Like I just gave the example, 401ks and savings is one way to look at it, but like, what else do you help them with as a planner?
Well, sure. So, I mean, obviously, if you're having um, children and you want to step away to stay at home and care for them, sometimes it might make sense. But we also have to be mindful. It's not just the income, it's not just your contributions to the retirement plan, but also the match and other benefits. Now, I've had some clients who stepped away for, gosh, 6 years, right?
Wow.
Um, they were able to transition back in the workforce once their children entered kindergarten. They took classes at community college. I mean, I think that what makes me sad is after the pandemic and the we or even during the pandemic, and as a result, I'd say even after the pandemic, a lot of women, because strict RTO, return to office rules, regulations, guidelines, a lot of working moms have had to leave the workforce. If you do have to leave and you find yourself in a position where you do have extra money, even though it could be a stay-at-home dad too. So this
Yes.
advice applies to a stay-home parent in general. As long as your spouse or partner has earned income and you are filing a joint return, right? The parent who is a stay-at-home parent would be eligible to contribute to a spousal IRA. Now,
Right.
if you meet the income guidelines, you could do a spousal Roth IRA. If you don't meet the income guidelines, maybe you like earn too much, you could do um, a traditional IRA. It might not be deductible, just kind of depends on the situation. But the um, what's really important here is if you do have a little bit of extra money, even if it's like only $2,000. The stay-at-home parents can contribute to a spousal IRA or a Roth IRA, just depending on your situation. That way, they still have retirement savings. We're not saying this because we're going to scare people and say you're going to get divorced. That's not what this is about. But this is the opportunity for the spouse who has stayed at home to still have some retirement savings during the time. Now, when someone has to step away to care for aging relatives, this can be particularly challenging. Women are more vulnerable because this is a time when they're starting to really enter their peak earning years, and it's not just the income that um, you're losing, it's also the momentum. So I
Hmm.
tell people, the worst case scenario is to quit because you do need to make sure that your retirement is okay. So this is a caregiving conference that I tell people, these conversations about caregiving can be very, very awkward. They can. It's very, very stressful for parents who think, oh, my kids are just going to take care of me. It's important for you to have a conversation with your
Right.
family about long term care. I don't mean long term care insurance. I mean, if something were to happen to you and you needed care for an extended period of time, um, the first question is, who do you want to give you that care? Because if it's your kid, you need to like let them know that they can't read your mind. Second, where do you want to get the care? Like, if you want to move in with your kid's house, you need to be a little bit open. And then, last but not least, pay for care. The reality is, people who don't, like, my kid's just going to take care of it. Parents aren't mean. I know how much they love their grandparents, but just remember with it, runaway inflation, people have to save for retirement, they have to save for their kids' education. And now
Yeah.
you're asking them to pay for your care. That's a lot for one person. And no wonder why people feel overwhelmed.
Yeah, I mean, and one of the biggest things that I see is that, people don't know what dying looks like here in the US. Like in other parts of the world, people die pretty quick, of something because they may not have access to medical care or they just don't go, it's just, and then you check out a little sooner. But here in the US, I don't think people are aware that because of medication, because we do have access to a lot more doctors, not everyone goes, I know that, but that your heart disease, your cancer, your diabetes can be managed. I haven't even talked about Alzheimer's or dementia. That stuff can all be managed. Even cancer can be managed quite differently. And so what happens is that, it's really the big thing that can happen in, for adults is fall. Falls are the bigger one, like they could fall for all kinds of reasons. It could be totally normal and have a trip and fall. It's not to say they won't recover, but the statistics are that they're going to need care. The statistics are that they're going to need more care. And we don't know all the resources that are available, and who knows what insurance is going to pay for what, and all that other good stuff. But I will tell you, Medicare does not cover a lot of stuff, and people are like, "Whoa, this is really newsworthy." And like, it's not 2 weeks of your life that you're going to step away and help out your mom or your dad or both of them. In some cases, it could be months, it could be years, and dying just it takes a lot longer than people realize. And we had a presenter yesterday who had a picture of her husband who's like, this is what it looks like when they're dying. And he was in their home and he was completely, with all the tubes and everything. And she's like, yeah, this is what it looks like when people are dying. Like we think it's like some dramatic thing. And then I was totally fine. And then I just collapsed. No, no, it's so different. And I think what gets lost is not who's going to pay for it, but like what are the wishes of this person? What are the goals? So like if the goal is I wish to pass away in my home, which is by the way the financial and the medical trends, because a lot of these facilities, whether it's assisted living, nursing home, you name it, they don't, or hospitals, they just don't have all the beds or the people to staff them. And yeah, there's robots, but I don't know if you want the robots
I know,
now.
right?
I mean, you might want to hold off and do something a little more sophisticated. But yeah, so I mean, like these are all things that could happen and this would work, but we don't know necessarily how long it could take and what would be needed. And so one of the things that I always like to have is that question, like you said, it's really awkward, is to like, best case scenario, you would like it to go like this, right? What if that's not going to happen? And this is something that I feel like caregivers don't ask. They only hear my mother wants to die at home. My mother wants to die at home. My mother wants to die at home. And then they will, move heaven and earth so that mom will pass away at home, but it comes at a massive financial cost as well as a mental health cost. And I think it's something that people do not plan for because they've never experienced it because all we have is really the future generation to see really how it went. Like, what did my mother do? What did my father do? Well, I grew up with only one grandparent. He lived to be 101. That's a statistical anomaly. And then I had both my parents die pretty young of Alzheimer's. Where'd that happen?
I
You just
know,
never
right?
know.
So different extremes. I totally agree with you. I think so. My dad had Parkinson's disease, and my dad
Mm,
was sick for 11 years. And a lot of
wow.
people, you have to do what's right. Sometimes what our loved ones want may
Yeah.
not be in their best interest. Now, I'm here to tell you, my dad was able to um, receive care in home,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but that might not be appropriate for every family in every situation. So at the end of the day, I love what you said, that we do want to respect and honor the wishes of our loved ones. However, we also need to think about their safety. We also need to think, because like my daughter told me, she's like, Mommy, you can't pour from an empty cup. We want to
Yeah.
do right by them. But if we are like not um, emotionally, mentally, physically, financially well, then that is an empty cup, and we can't care for others, let alone ourselves, the way that we need to.
Exactly. Exactly. Like what else can we do? And I feel like the minute we can have, okay, we know what the best case scenario is, but what is it that we want to do? In light of new information. So this happened to my father-in-law. He was a wonderful person. And unfortunately, he ended up developing MRSA after having surgery. He had cancer surgery. They removed a lump. He made it through the surgery, but MRSA it was a complication. He ended up contracting it in the hospital. He was not able to go home because he was airborne contagious. This is before the pandemic. And so this was devastating to, my husband's family. They were like, his goal is to go home, and they're like, we cannot release him home to you because the infection he has can kill you. And they were like, but we'll wear masks and we'll wear gloves. And the hospital was like, no.
So that's what I tell people. It's important to respect and honor, but we also have to think about the safety of others around them as well. So, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not just being practical or like you said, oh, it sounds terrible when he said he wouldn't pay for the funeral. He said, no, I'm not going to give you a loan. I'll pay for it myself,
Yes, exactly.
like
Exactly.
there is that balance there of like, I like to think of it as pragmatic compassion, like you're aware of what is going on, and then you're not trying to like, let's go for broke. Let's go for everything and then see how it goes. No. Hmm.
Absolutely. I love that. What you said
Pragmatic
about being
compassion.
pragmatic compassion.
It just flew out of my mouth, but like that's what I feel like we're talking about is it's understanding, like you just said, like the logic and what the money is and obviously what the goals are, and then we're like, best case scenario is this, but if it's this is what it's going to be,
Right, exactly.
and we have to be prepared for that. And I feel like a lot of times as caregivers, we're putting on too many hats and we don't know. And then, if you've got multiple family members, everyone's got to chime in their opinion about what's happening, what's going on, and what will be going on, and what will be done, and then you're kind of left in the wind of like, okay, oh,
Exactly. Oh
I guess it's
no.
going to be this. One of the things that I do recommend for families, if you know that mom or dad or both of them did not pay for a lot of or don't have a lot of extra money, like they don't have maybe a lot of cash on hand to pay for long-term care, and I mean like people coming in like aides and things of that nature. That it's, the mother-in-law suite in homes or, refinishing your basement, not because it's necessarily like, oh, let's get a renter and it'll cover the mortgage kind of thing, although that does happen and I'm all for that. But I've met more families that have decided to do that because they realize that an apartment, those rates go up. Then you got to deal with electric or, the utilities, or if you're in a condo, HOA fees can go up, all of this stuff. And sometimes if hopefully have a good relationship with your in-laws or your loved ones, that's sometimes the best answer is to create a situation for them that is just more cost effective and it allows more connectivity time. Hopefully that's positive. And then if, we get to final stages, then we know what we need to do.
Absolutely. I mean, I can't say enough about that. I do think obviously every family is different. I mean,
Hmm.
when my dad was sick, because remember, my dad was sick for 11 years, my
Wow.
parents' home is like, um, I feel like it was the best of both worlds. They have their own home, we have our own home, but their home was actually closer to the bus stop than my home. We could walk there. So it was ideal because if they need something, I can be there, but they also have their own space. And so yes, yeah, and my children, my dad passed away 10 years ago. My kids are older. They're in their 20s now. The
Hmm.
youngest just turned 20, but the older ones are in their 20s. And they definitely look back on that time very fondly. I got to see grandpa after school and give him a snack.
Hmm.
That
Hmm.
that meant so much to both generations.
Yes. Yes, I love that. I love that there was an opportunity, there was a way to connect it and way to do it. Okay. That's
Yes,
very good.
absolutely.
Yeah. What is the most common question I think that you might get from families, particularly from caregivers who are like, I've got some stuff going on, but I'm not sure what I can do financially. I mean, what are some of the most common questions? And again, this is just what your experience is, not like this is what all financial planners do, because we all know they're different.
So I think the most common question is, um, many of the people, they're like, I know my parents need help. It's not that I have to help, I want to help, but how much can I help
Great question.
without obviously compromising my ability to help my kid with education or my retirement? I want to help. How much can I help? To what ability?
That
And
is like one of the best and
it's one of the best
sane.
questions that they ask. And I was
Yeah.
like,
Oh,
listen, you can do this amount. And I love what you said about in home care. Maybe it might not be appropriate for you to quit your job, right?
yeah.
But if you have siblings, and I understand every family is different, but even having a in-home health aide come 2 days a week can be very, very helpful. Um, you don't have to like go full time. It can give you some relief because caregiver fatigue is real.
Yeah, it is.
Caregiver burnout is real. That's what I tell people. I mean, even after my dad passed away, I was like, what's wrong with me? Why am I so tired? Like, I wasn't whining, I just didn't feel myself. And I really thank my primary care physicians. It turns out I wasn't myself because I was anemic. I was just like, go, go, go. And they said, this isn't the type of thing where you can like eat spinach every day and take double doses of iron. Like, it's going to take time to regain your strength. So, when I say caregiver fatigue is real, I mean it because we
Yes,
show up for our loved ones, but it could really um, impact our well being as well, both
exactly.
financially and physical.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm so glad that got that treated because again, like people wait sometimes like months, sometimes years
They
later.
do.
And you're like, why did you wait until you're in a hospital room? And they're like, well, now we're gonna hook you up, put you on lots of meds because you got multiple conditions. And that could have been avoided. So yeah. Hmm.
Absolutely. So that's the question. How I want to help. How much can I help without harming myself? And then another thing is like really just navigating resources. I'm so overwhelmed. I don't even know where to start. So I might ask them if they have resources that like share your employee benefit manual. It's all digital now, and I'll read. Oh, come to find out, there is there's support case management services. Now that doesn't mean that your employer is going to pay for your parents' long-term care, but they have access to like a directory of providers because it can be very hard
Yeah.
to caregive from afar.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly. I know exactly what you mean because long distance caregiving can be just as traumatic, in my opinion. There's a lot of research about obviously primary caregivers, but I mean, having to watch and walk in the house or in the room, that was part of my story of like walking in and going, this is not right. How long has this been going on? And the primary caregiver going, I didn't even notice. And you're like, what?
Exactly. They're both traumatic in different ways. So that's what I tell people,
Hmm.
take advantage. If you don't know where to start, I'm here to listen. Um, but the facts are that this is very overwhelming and it's not unusual for people to feel overwhelmed because there's a lot coming at them.
Yeah, there is. There is. Do you ever get questions? Because this is part of my money story and we're coming up on time, so we'll make this the last question. But um, do you ever have it happen that when people are, they have questions, they have concerns, they're not entirely sure if what's going on financially speaking for their loved one is making a lot of sense. So part of my story is that my mother's estate was financially exploited. Like the whole thing was liquidated. It was $1 million, not spent on her care. Here we are now, right? So there were lots of red flags. And there was a lot of lying, and there was a lot of, I promise I'll send you, and we never got it. Anyway, um, do you ever get questions from people like, how do I have maybe a conversation or like, what is it that I might need to do to be aware of red flags? Again, we're not saying people have done it and taken money or we're not accusing anyone, but there are red flags. And I would love if you could share like what some of the red flags that you see in here as a financial planner when you're talking to families and you're like, well, that doesn't sound 100%. Hmm.
So, sure, there are some red flags. I'm also going to share some quick strategies that people can do to protect their loved ones.
Sure.
So, some red flags would be a change in your loved one's appearance. Like if their clothes aren't as clean and they're not as well presented, if
Hmm.
they seem withdrawn, so change in their appearance. Also, a change in spending, right? All of a sudden, you see big withdrawals or things being purchased. Um, you can also see things in terms of, you know, senior exploitation is real. It's financial abuse, but there's also physical abuse. Some
Hmm.
people get very impatient with our elders and they might you know, move them around more forcefully. I don't want to say beats and they could have so this is another sign. Some of the things that you can do on the financial and to be a little bit more proactive. I've done this with clients. You ask the client why they are alive and alert. So this is a little bit more proactive. If in the event I can't reach you, do you want to list a secondary contact? Now, that secondary contact does not have power of attorney. It's just in case you don't hear of them. You call to check on them. Another thing that you can do is you can request, remember, you must ask your loved one's permission to receive duplicate statements. Um, it's just to have an extra set of eyes and ears. This is so important. You do need their permission. But one of my clients was 82 years old in Chevy Chase, Maryland. Now, she did have congestive heart disease. She doesn't like to
Hmm.
say failure because it sounds so bad, but she's like, I have congestive heart failure. No,
Right.
disease. Not, I don't like to
Right.
say failure. I have congestive heart disease, not failure. But mentally, she was sharp. And
Yeah.
one day she noticed that she was missing $10,000 from her
Ooh.
checking account. It turns out this client is sharp and on the ball. Um, I was able to work with her
Hmm.
and her son. So that's the third piece of advice. If you're a financial advisor, try to establish a relationship with the adult children. Listen, this isn't about retaining the assets. Obviously, it does make good sense to build a relationship with the next generation. But her son and I were able to contact the bank, and it turns out someone had entered her apartment, um, took her bills, and then forged and took $10,000 out of her account. We got the money back.
Yay.
And like this client will tell you, she is sharp. So all these having a relationship with the son, her son knowing me, in solidarity, the son and I, communicating with the bank. And we were able to report this within 72 hours, which
Yeah,
is amazing.
perfect. Yeah, that's perfect because then the
Perfect.
bank can do something about
They
it.
can do something about it. But so that I tell people, you know what? It's so important. One of the things that you can do is you can do any of those strategies and come approach these conversations as a place of care and love. We want to make sure that you have the resources to ensure that you get the best care possible. We love you. When you approach it that way, people know that you're being genuine and sincere. So I think that's a good way to close. We want to someday we'll be old, and I just really like to um, protect people.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
I told you I love helping people, but most importantly, I love protecting people. I'm Mama
Yes.
Bear, Mama
Yes, you
Bear
are.
Finance.
There you go, Rita, the Mama Bear of Finance. I love it. Rita, thank you so much. And how do people get a hold of you? What is it's Blue Ocean? Is it financial wealth? I always forget the name of it.
Oh, sure. So, well, I'm Marguerita Cheng on LinkedIn, but
That's it.
blueoceanglobalwealth.com.
Global Wealth. I'm so close. I was like
It's
ocean.
okay, no problem. I am the only Margarita on Margarita Cheng, not the only Margarita, but the only Margarita Cheng on LinkedIn. So,
See, that is amazing.
absolutely. So, thank you so
Margarita,
much for having me.
thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop the recording. So thank you.